The glycemic impact of a meal is often blamed on the carbohydrate itself, yet in practice, blood sugar response is shaped far more by preparation, structure, and context than by the grain alone. The same rice, wheat, or corn can behave like fast sugar or slow fuel depending on how it is cooked, cooled, fermented, and combined with other foods. From a positive analytical perspective, this means blood sugar control is not about eliminating familiar staples, but about preparing them in ways that align with human metabolism. Boiled rice eaten hot and fresh is a classic example of high starch availability. When rice is fully cooked in water, its starch granules gelatinize completely, making glucose easy and fast to absorb. This often translates into a relatively high glycemic index, especially for white rice. For many people, this rapid glucose rise can be useful, providing quick energy after physical activity or during recovery. However, when the same rice is cooled after cooking, something remarkable happens. As the rice cools, a portion of the gelatinized starch reorganizes into a more crystalline form known as resistant starch. Resistant starch resists digestion in the small intestine and behaves more like fiber, slowing glucose release and feeding beneficial gut bacteria. Cooled rice, or rice that is cooked, cooled, and then gently reheated, consistently produces a lower blood sugar response than freshly boiled rice, even though the carbohydrate content is unchanged. Bread shows a similar contrast. Conventional baked bread made with refined flour and fast yeast fermentation often produces a moderate to high glycemic response because starch is readily accessible and digestion begins quickly in the mouth. The soft crumb and fine structure encourage rapid eating and minimal chewing, further accelerating glucose absorption. Sourdough bread, by contrast, undergoes long fermentation with lactic acid bacteria. This fermentation acidifies the dough, alters starch structure, and slows gastric emptying. Many studies and real-world observations show that sourdough bread produces a lower and more gradual blood glucose rise compared to standard white bread, even when calories and carbohydrates are similar. The benefit is not just chemical but behavioral as well. Sourdough's denser texture and complex flavor promote slower eating, which further moderates glycemic response. Corn-based foods highlight how traditional preparation can naturally shape blood sugar response. Corn tortillas made from nixtamalized corn tend to have a lower glycemic impact than many refined wheat breads or pastries. Nixtamalization improves starch structure, increases calcium content, and often results in a denser, more fibrous matrix that slows digestion. When tortillas are paired with beans, vegetables, or healthy fats, their glycemic effect is further softened. This combination illustrates how cultural food systems evolved to deliver stable energy without the language of glycemic index. What makes these differences especially empowering is that they can be observed at home. People using continuous glucose monitors often notice striking contrasts when they eat the same grain prepared in different ways. A bowl of freshly cooked white rice may produce a sharp spike within 30 to 45 minutes, followed by a noticeable drop. The same portion of rice, cooked the day before and reheated, often produces a smaller rise and a flatter curve. Even without a glucose monitor, simple post-meal checks can be informative. Paying attention to how hungry, sleepy, or energized you feel 1 to 2 hours after eating provides practical feedback. Meals that lead to steady energy and delayed hunger are usually lower in effective glycemic impact, regardless of what nutrition labels suggest. For those who want a more structured home approach, a simple step-by-step experiment can be revealing. Eat a consistent portion of a grain-based food on different days, prepared in different ways, and keep other variables as stable as possible. Note portion size, added fats or proteins, and timing. Observe subjective markers such as energy, focus, and hunger, or use fingerstick glucose readings if available. Over time, patterns emerge that are often more meaningful than generalized GI tables because they reflect individual metabolism. Lowering glycemic impact does not require extreme measures. Small, realistic adjustments make a substantial difference. Adding protein or healthy fat to a grain-based meal slows digestion and glucose absorption. Cooling grains overnight and reheating them the next day increases resistant starch without sacrificing flavor or comfort. Choosing fermented grain products like sourdough bread or traditionally prepared corn tortillas improves both blood sugar response and mineral absorption. Even acidity matters. Adding vinegar, citrus, or fermented vegetables to a meal can modestly but reliably reduce post-meal glucose rise. Texture and structure also deserve attention. Firmer, less processed grains that require more chewing tend to produce lower glycemic responses than soft, finely milled ones. Eating slowly, chewing thoroughly, and pairing grains with vegetables and legumes further stabilizes blood sugar by spreading glucose absorption over time. These habits work synergistically with preparation methods, reinforcing the body's natural glucose-regulating systems. The most encouraging takeaway is that glycemic control is not a rigid equation tied to a single number. It is a dynamic response shaped by preparation, combinations, and individual context. By cooling rice, choosing sourdough over standard bread, favoring nixtamalized corn products, and building meals with protein and fat, familiar grains can remain part of a diet that supports steady energy and metabolic health. Rather than fearing carbohydrates, this perspective invites curiosity and experimentation, showing that how we prepare food often matters more than what food we choose.